Finished shooting sunrise, came down to Kubota Gardens. You can see, trying to keep the camera out of the sun, see the Japanese maples. Unfortunately, the one I really wanted to shoot was most of the leaves are gone. So we found this one right by the water. TJ's got my 14mm on. So we were shooting these. Now wander around, find a couple more. Get the trunks and the colors, so everything's looking really good. And then head back and get some processing done. Went through my editing process on these photos from the Kubota Gardens with the Japanese maples. So first thing I do, I've got the normal colored one, I've got the dark one right here for the highlights and stuff. What we're going to do is, first things first, I'm going to pull down the highlights, open up the shadows, got the white point a little bit, come down, to get rid of sharpening for now, I'll do that later. Remove chromatic aberration, enable profile correction. I use my Rokinon 14mm lens. So come down here, Rokinon, you can see it goes 14mm. So from there, actually one more thing, come down to the blue primary. You can see that when I drag it, it really makes a photo pop. So I usually drag those over. And from there, we'll hit shift in the dark one and just sync everything we did, just make it easy. Now they're both the same. Switch back and forth. You can see the highlights in there are pretty dark. And then switch back to this one. There. So from there, what we're going to do is put here, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Okay, so what I like to do is put my dark exposure on top. That's just personal preference. For me, it's just easier. Let's go to our channel selector. And then what you do is you just click through and try and find the one with the brightest highlights and the darkest everything else. So you can see that's pretty good. The green, the leaves start to get a little brighter. Red, even brighter. So I think we'll stick with the blue. So from here, what you want to do is drag this down, make a copy of it. Because if you change it on here, it'll actually change your photo. So from here, I hit Command M, bring up the curves adjustment layer, and then pull down my shadows, and then bring up my highlights. Just so it just makes the blend that much better by doing that. Then hit OK. Now what you do is you click this one here, because now when you open it up in this as a selection, it will reveal what you just did. So hit the RGB channel again, go to layers and click a mask. And now you can see, if I just click on the mask, that's what is revealed on the dark one. You can see all how there's no more super bright highlights. Here what I like to do is make another layer, which is on a Mac, it's Option Command Shift E. And then I have a program called Raya Pro, and it's got this finish clean chromatic aberration. And it basically makes another layer and gives you this little brush, and you just brush out your chromatic aberration. It is really slick. So you're just gonna do that, clean it up. You can see all that chromatic aberration is pretty much gone. So from there, what I want to do is open up Curves Adjustment layer. What I like to do is hit the Option button and then hit Auto. And it builds the histograms, and it creates this little box where you have 4 options. And to me, it just makes things a little easier to deal with. You can see once that opens up right here, so you can have enhanced brightness and contrast, and find darks and lights, enhance per channel, and monochromatic. And I really like this one, so click OK with that. And then let's create another layer. So once this is done, creates another layer here. So with that layer, I'm now able to go to Nik Collection and Color Effects Pro 4. Okay, Color Effects 4 is opened up. You can see it opens up with Pro Contrast. That's just the way it does it for me. You can see as you adjust these, what changes. And this one goes, you know, light and dark. This one seems to go blue or yellow, so it gets really blue or stays really yellow. I'm just going to leave it yellow. Add a filter for the tonal contrast. And these are defaults, and they are way too high. So I usually like go like 10, 15, 10, and 0. And then that way I can adjust the saturation to however I feel is just enough. And I'll add another filter. And I really like this skylight filter. You can see how it changes. Just kind of adds some punchiness to it. We'll drop that down a little bit to about there. And that's pretty much it. With the tonal contrast too, this one here, you have to be careful because it does add a lot of noise. So a lot of times if there's a bunch of sky, I usually erase it out of the sky just to clean up all the noise. So click OK and wait for it to open back up in Photoshop. And then we can adjust the opacity if it's too much. And the reason I like to use the Nik in Photoshop is having this opacity slider. Because if you do it in Lightroom, it works, but if you overdo it, there's really nothing you can do about it. And it's kind of a hassle, so you usually have to like redo everything. So now it's back to here. So now if it's too much, so you can just drag the opacity down, drag it back up, you know, to wherever you feel is the best. So I think I kind of like it right about there. So that's about it with Photoshop. You can see what we've done. We started out with 102.5 megapixels or megabytes, and we are now at almost 700 megabytes photo or file. So what I like to do is just flatten the whole layer. Go down here, flatten the image, and it takes all those layers, puts them back into one layer, and now it's back to 102.5 megabytes. It just makes it easier to deal with. It loads faster, it goes back in the Lightroom faster. Just, I don't know, having a 700 megabyte file, my computer just bogs down, so I just flatten it up. And so now we're back to just background, back down to, where are we at? 136 megabytes. So easy to deal with. So here we'll go to save, saving it, and it will automatically open back up in the Lightroom, which is really handy. So click back over to Lightroom. See, now here's our photo. So from here, you know, you can, so you're basically now double processing. So if you want, you can drag this slider around, you know, until you feel it's, but I think it's pretty good the way it is. Come back in here, you can add a little bit of magenta, maybe even touch of yellow, kind of brighten up a little bit. And open up the shadow a little more, bring down the highlights just a touch more. And then you can just kind of zoom in. You can see I've got some lens or some sun issues. I wouldn't really call it lens flare, but so what you can do with that, just hit the brush tool. You can see it's kind of greenish, a little bit yellow, so add some yellow, a little bit green, and it's quite a bit darker. So bring the exposure down, kind of bring the flow and density down so it doesn't overdo it right away. You just kind of brush this in a little bit, kind of get rid of the brightness of the sun. Like that, and then from there, let's make a new one because we want to do this section here, but you can see it's different colors. So from there, some magenta, still make it fairly dark, so now we can kind of brush this in a little bit. So this way, by dropping the density and the flow, you can slowly add to it so you don't overdo it. So from here, we just kind of cruise around, see what we have going on. think that's looking pretty good. There are a few issues with, something like this. So with this, you can always add a new brush. Bring the yellows down, let's darken this a little bit. And then you can just kind of, say, just brush in and darken everything up a little bit. And make sure this is on auto mask. That way it knows not to color the wrong things. I can add a little bit more yellow to this. Kind of brush this around. Oops, that's changing the size of the thing. Just kind of keep checking it out. Yeah, I definitely want to do this one. Let's drop the yellow on this one. Add a bit more magenta. You can just kind of brush this in. See how that's working there. But one thing too is this section, this part right here is actually a tree behind it, and it should be green. So don't want to go too crazy with that. So from there, I think we're looking pretty good. You're just gonna scroll down. Be done with that. Actually, let's go back up one more time. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Done. Zoom out. And then from there, I like to, now we can add some sharpening. I like to drop the radius and detail all the way up. And if you hit option and masking, you can see whatever's white gets sharpened. So we just want the edges of everything. On anything else, and just a little bit of noise reduction. You don't want to go over 30 per se on this, because that'll just start to make it look really soft. You can see as it's doing its thing here. See, so it cleaned up the noise pretty well. And that's looking pretty good. Just one more, click that, and remove chromatic aberration. And add a little bit of vignetting just to kind of bring down the corners a little bit. And that's pretty much it. Photo's done. And from there you can export it, however you feel like it. Just click export, and then choose whatever folder you want. I usually go same as original folder, puts in a subfolder called Lightroom, and then you can just be like Japanese maple. Spell this properly. Japanese maple. Let's see, 2 because this is the second one I've done that, but I know. Sharp, resize 2500 for the long edge for pixels, 300 pixels per inch. I like to add my watermark. And then just hit export. And then that's it. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below in the description box or in the comment section. And then I'll see you on the next video.